Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Welcome back to Chit Chat Connections, Black and Beautiful People, Black and Beautiful Family. We are here for season 2. I couldn't believe it. We made it through 10 episodes in season 1. We'll be going through 10 episodes in season 2. It is so amazing to be back here with you. Diversity, equity, and inclusion is the name of the game on this podcast because we're looking to help you develop your lens one episode at a time. So, as a reminder, this podcast is brought to you by Imanaborenainc. Imana Borena has a three-pronged approach to DEI, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and that is students, professionals, and organizations. And IB, which is our nickname, seeks to help develop a critical lens rooted in equity and righteousness for all people. So our student approach is we develop young people one college access and success issue at a time. So we help young people develop those leadership skills by talking and coaching them through different types of scenarios as it pertains to their higher education journey. Any young person who is interested in going to college or is currently in college can access our full resources for free. Yes, guys, we give students resources for free. That means we will help you with your degree audit. We'll help you choose your major. We will help you talk about finances and financial aid. What does it look like to get a job after college? All that good stuff, the ins and outs, the nuances. Imana Borena is here for you. And like I said, it is free of charge. We do not charge young people. So you can go on our website and you can sign up for some time, some coaching time, and we will be more than happy to help you through that journey. Our professionals, yes, new through established professionals, we are here for you. We would like to put you through trainings. We also do one-on-one coaching. Look, anyone who's looking to become that DEI professional with, that resiliency within their organization or wants to be a leader within their organization, we are here for you. We do charge for that. Our professionals do have to pay, but hey, you guys are old enough. You have a job. You can pay for that. So we do have one-on-one trainings. We do have the opportunity for you to go at your own pace. I'll tell you a little bit later about those trainings. And obviously we do, training and workshop style initiative help, right? So that you can start thinking about how you bring your lens to your specific scope of work. And then for organizations, that's that large DEI strategy, that large development lens at a large scale so that permeates throughout an organization. That is very much curated based on organizations and their scope and their mission and their goals. So if you're interested in that, you can sign up for a free consultation, a 30-minute free consultation on our website as well. And all of this information will be in the box below so you can have easy access to it. All right. So I want to give you guys some updates about what is happening with imanaborenainc. We're looking to provide 5 incoming freshmen with the Summer Bridge Boot Camp for the month of July. And this will help them achieve success in college, right? I know that some students are already in EOP programs or have Summer Bridge programs through their nonprofit organizations. Please go ahead and do those. So we're choosing 5 young people who might not have that type of access. So if you know any young person who would be interested in a 1-month boot camp cohort style, we'll go through everything. We'll go through registration. We'll go through, understanding the academic language, right? A lot of people don't even know what a semester is because in high school, they call it a quarter. So really just talking about what different tools you need to be successful while you're at college, or whether you're in a certification program or you're doing some sort of internship. What does that look like and how can we help you through that? I don't want to toot my horn, but I have sent a large number of young people all over the country to college and help them to and through college onto their master's degrees and gainful and useful employment post-graduation. So this will be a great opportunity for some young people in tandem with that, guys. And this is for all my adults out there who are, looking to give back in some type of way. We are looking to raise $7,000 to buy this cohort of young people Apple MacBook Air laptops. And in addition to their laptop, they will receive a $100 gift card for other miscellaneous items. You guys would be surprised how many students go to college without a laptop or funds for small necessities. So click the link below if you'd like to partner with us. And you can donate as much as you like, $1, 50 cents, $5, $100, whatever moves you. It is all appreciated. For those of you who are interested and you're at your own pace, trainings that are available. They're available immediately for download on the website. You can learn more about DEI terminology and frameworks currently. We have some utilizing your strengths coming up and other ways to engage creating DEI initiatives and things like that. And a portion of those proceeds that you purchase when you purchase the training, portion of those proceeds will go towards our $7,000 campaign that we would like to raise, right? So we are really excited. The link is in the description box. There is a QR code if you would like to share that with people. When you click on the website, the QR code will come up and you can share that and say, hey, we're looking to raise $7,000 for some young people. In addition, if you look at the top of our screen, you can follow us on any one of our social media platforms and our flyers will be going up. The QR code will be going up as well. That is coming your way, but you are literally getting an exclusive today on what is on the horizon for imanaborenainc. We are here to change one lens at a time, one episode at a time. And our young people, they are our future and they are going to be the ones who carry on this legacy of DEI. I don't foresee diversity, equity, and inclusion stopping at any point. Our people are really, really looking toward our generation, is really looking forward to living in a society where we're not harming each other. I really feel that way. I am not going to subscribe to speaking death over what DEI actually can look like. We can live in an equitable society. We can live in a space where people feel validated in their identities and in the intersection of their identities, which is very important. Not looking at things through a monolithic lens, but really seeing that people have multi-dimensional intersecting identities, and that brings such a wealth of knowledge and of culture and of perspective, and we can live in a society where we champion that. We can. I believe that we can, and I think that Imana Barina is here for this reason, and that's why we're engaging, and that's why we're in our chit chat connection. All right, so let's get into it. So trauma aftermath, that is our theme for today. And I'm going to take a sip. As you guys know, I love having some sort of drink while we're chitting and we're chatting. So after the trauma, I wanted this to be a response to the Buffalo Massacre. And as I was developing the script for today, I recognized, as I was scrolling through my social media, my personal social media, that Uvalde, Texas had a school shooting where 17 people died, children under the age of 10 and 2 teachers. Now, I said the aftermath of trauma, when in actuality our society has clearly, there is no aftermath of the trauma, because last week we were mourning 10 people who lost their lives going to the supermarket, minding their own business. And now we're mourning 17 people who went to school to learn and to be in community with each other and to grow 1 week from each other. And both of these incidents involved 18-year-olds who were able to go and purchase rifles to move forward in their plan and their plot to murder people. 18-year-olds. 2 separate incidents on separate parts of this country, and they both were 18. I think we have a larger issue here. I think we have a larger issue than race and gender, and we have a larger issue. Something is happening to our young people. Something is wrong. Something is severely wrong, and it's been wrong for a while, and I think that we've been layering it with flowers and saying, oh, it's just mental health, but you would think these are two isolated incidents, and I don't know. I just have this strange feeling that it's not. So I'm going to go into it a little bit. So the suspect in the Buffalo massacre reportedly, had this 180-page manifesto, and he believed in the Great Replacement conspiracy theory. Now, the Great Replacement conspiracy theory is a thought process that is very rooted in white supremacy and let me not use suggestive terms. Let me be very direct. The Great Replacement conspiracy theory, or the Great Replacement theory, is that white folks are going to become the minority. And this is a conversation that I'm going to get into later on in our podcast series, because I feel like this particular theory deserves a dedicated time and space for us to talk through it. But yeah, the replacement theory is this ideology that white people are going to become the minority. But anyone who studies geography, who understands the census, who understands the world, who understands world populations, who understands culture, already knows that European white on the globe is a minority in comparison to communities of color. So this is how adopting these types of lens without doing any critical research, only because it sounds good to your ear, only because you have this fear, or whatever would make you subscribe to this type of ideology, you have to do some more research. If European whites are already a minority on a global standard, and when we say minority, it's just less people who are European white than there are people of color in the world. If that's already something that exists, what are you fearful of? Like, you're already functioning in that. What I think happens, and this is where cognitive dissonance comes in, I personally believe that living in America and being indoctrinated in this white supremacy lens, this lie was told that white people are the majority. No, you are the majority in this particular country because access to resources were stripped and the historical context allowed for that to be. That doesn't translate all over the world. And once you figured out, like, oh my goodness, I've been lied to, instead of you saying, okay, wow, I just learned something new, let me sit on this, let me recognize what's happening, you have to blame someone, and you're going to blame who the ideology tells you to blame. And in this case, this suspect, 18, 19-year-old, decided to blame Black folks for it. And furthermore, he knew exactly where to go, down to the block, down to the supermarket, he knew coordinates. His coordinates were extremely precise. He knew exactly where to go to kill Black people, which is another issue. You see how nuanced diversity, equity, and inclusion is when you actually break it down? He knew exactly where to go, which also speaks about residential segregation in this country. He knew where more Black people would be populated, which also shows us that there's a control on that population. So how could they replace you when power does not lie in their hands to replace you? It doesn't, like, I'm having cognitive dissonance. See, this is why I don't go too deep into this stuff, because now I'm gonna have cognitive dissonance and then I'm gonna sit here and get triggered. I'm trying to stay as, as specific as possible, because I want us to engage in this conversation. I want you guys to be able to talk about this with your friends and your family in through a critical lens. Like, there are more things happening here than just people blaming Tucker Carlson and far right personalities and this manifesto and white supremacy. There's like embedded indoctrination. Not only did he think he was going to be replaced, and he had this ideology that he subscribed to that he found on the internet. He was 18. He wasn't even developed yet mentally, maturity wise. And on top of that, he's not being watched by his family. And on top of that, he knew exactly where to go, because we live in a country that legit residentially segregates people to strip resources from their community. It boggles my mind that this boy knew exactly where to go. It really does. He knew where to go for a concentrated amount of people of color that he could murder. And then he had time to write a 180-page online manifesto. He was neglected. Where is your parent? And on top of that, he had already been doing these types of things already in his school, in his community. We really have to watch these children, man. A lot of people are neglecting their kids. I'm not making excuses for anyone, but when children act out, it's for a reason. Clearly, this young man was severely neglected, because he had time to write a 180-page paper. Sir, if you don't go write a dissertation, go get your PhD. If you really believed in this ideology, why you didn't take this to academia? You 18 years old wanting to write a 180-page online manifesto. Do you know when I was 18 years old, it was hard to get me to write a 2-page essay? A 2-page essay was super hard for me. This boy writing 180 pages. The boy got a dissertation. He plotted this for a very long time and nobody was watching him. We like to place blame. And in this moment, I'm going to place a little bit of blame. This is neglect from family. This is neglect from parents. This is what happens when you don't watch your children. This is what happens when you don't raise your children. This is what happens when you let television and internet raise your children. And God gave us all an opportunity, for those of us who, who were able to survive COVID. Oh, excuse me, I shouldn't even be saying that. For those of us who were able to survive the pandemic, I mean, you had time to be with your children. You had time to spend time. Now, I understand there are different life circumstances that could have, stopped his family from being around him, and they might have still been working. He might have been poor. There's a whole type of, there are a lot of different reasons, right? But this is what happens when you don't watch your kids. You need to watch your children. You really do. You really need to watch your kids. So anyway, this was legit last week. Now, yesterday, an 18-year-old, once again, opened fire on an elementary school in Uvalde, Texas. And on top of that, he kills 19 children and 2 teachers, and then he wounds 16 other people, including his 66-year-old grandmother. What does your grandmother have to do with anything? What is wrong with these young people? And then he said, apparently he used to get bullied in school. And he told a girl that he was Instagram DMing that he needs to tell her a secret because he was about to air something out. So this is my thing. If we are watching our young people, now I'm not saying that this grandmother didn't try to stop him. She got shot. I mean, he was willing to shoot his own grandmother. There's obviously other things happening here. And I'm not going to dismiss that. I'm not going to make it seem as if I'm not sensitive to that. However, this is when we're not watching our kids, we're giving them the opportunity to come up with things that, I mean, as a child, the best thing that my mother did was tell me what I should think, what was right or wrong. My mother instilled in me a moral compass. We can't let TV raise our children. We can't even let the school systems raise our children because our kids are not their responsibility to raise. Our kids are their responsibility to educate and keep safe, but not to raise them. Somebody failed this young man. Now, some people might be, some people might feel like, you know what, CC, I don't know, that you might not agree with me. You might disagree with me, but I feel like our society is failing our young people. We're failing them. And the adults are to blame at this point. Who was in your life and why weren't they ensuring that you were not ingesting too much violence or not ingesting too much sexual, imagery or where are your parents? Where are your parents? My kids are going to be in the house all the time. And I want them to be like, yes, ma'am. I might put them in ROTC. I don't have time. Not my children. Not the young people that I work with either. And that's another thing. As community members, we need to be okay with our community chastising our children and getting them on track. We need to be okay with that. What happened to community living? Sometimes you might not be able to get to your child or your parent, or your family member, but there might be somebody out there who might be able to relate to them and help in that moment. We can't stop those things. We can't stop our kids from being checked. I recently had to check a little 3-year-old at a graduation. She's going to tell me to shush. I asked her who is she talking to, and I let her know I'm the adult. And she sure did turn her head and sat right there with her hands crossed. Sometimes we need to check our kids. We need to help our parents who are out here trying to do the best they can and they can't watch their kids. Why isn't mama on the block watching them? Anyway, I'm not trying to go into a whole lecture with you guys, but I did want to give some context into, the aftermath of trauma. And so I was searching for some good, some juicy resources that we could talk about today so we could walk away with something in our back pockets versus like me just, venting to you guys about things that are happening in our country. So I was on the Athens Community Foundation's website in Georgia, and they had some information that I found super helpful, and I want to go through it with you today because I really want us to talk about, what can we do in these moments to empower each other? What can we do in these moments to support each other? And how do we prevent these types of things from happening again or from perpetuating themselves? Now, that piece, that how do we prevent, that prevention piece, in my opinion, that prevention piece requires us as a society to understand God and how he sees things and doing things his way so that we can live protected lives, so that we could live the fulfilled lives and the purpose that he gave us in this world. And for those of you who are tuning in for the first time, this is a Christ following platform. We talk about life events, but we also give God the glory, and we understand that there are other implications to behaviors in people and how we navigate space. So here, we're righteous here. Righteous through a godly lens. We read the King James Version Bible and we believe in Jesus. And if you don't believe in Jesus, or you haven't subscribed to that, stick around with us. Maybe you might get touched and the Spirit of God might dwell on you so that you could give your life to the Lord. But I find that societies, communities that really work in tandem with each other to give God glory and do things the right way, God's way, they always seem to be protected, and they always seem to have less violence and things like that within their communities. I find that to be true. And it could be just a group of a family, one family. You see that family, they might live in a hard neighborhood, but they serve the Lord, and they do it in spirit and in truth, and they did all the rules, and God has kept them. So that prevention piece, in my opinion, comes from really submitting our lives unto the Lord. But, New York, look at me, New York. America says one nation under God. I think we really need to start living that out. Because right now, I don't see people dying and 18-year-olds committing mass murders. There's nothing godly about that. So when we go back into the Athens Community Foundation, the information I found that was super helpful had to do with informed trauma, right? Or being trauma informed. Now, I had gone through some trainings previously because I worked with some young people who were homeless, who had been, in domestic violence relationships, whether they were with their family or with their partners, and, young people who were transitioning and, who were exploring their sexuality, young people who, might have been selling their bodies for cash and things like that. And so I went through a training just to understand and center the young person's how they dealt with things, right? Their responses, to center their responses around the fact that those responses most likely came from trauma. And so Athens Community Foundation in Georgia talks about the 3 E's of trauma. So the event, the experience, and the effects. So right now, as we're going through this trauma-filled week, the event, we had 2 of them. The experiences, right? Everyone can say that they have a family member who you go to the grocery store, you want to be safe. You send your kids to school, you want to be safe. That's the experience. The effects, then, is how people respond to that. How are people going to respond now? So right now, if you go scrolling through social media, you can see a lot of outrage. Steve Kerr was slamming on the table, last night at the press conference with anger, and outrage. A lot of people are angry. Our president is angry and outraged, right? Those are the effects. Because this is trauma. This is what we're experiencing right now. It's trauma. So the event is the traumatic situation, like I said. The experience is the way that someone emotionally responds. And the effects are the long-term and short-term outcomes associated with experiencing a traumatic event. Okay? So the effects and the experience, I switched them. Excuse me for that. So breaking down trauma into these 3 components focuses on the long-term effects of traumatic experiences by tying an individual's coping and processing methods to observe impacts of trauma. All right? So it focuses on the long-term effects of the traumatic experiences. And it ties the individual's coping process methods to observe the impacts of trauma. So this is what I did when I was working with young people who had suffered from severe trauma, and using a framework that incorporates the traumatic event with the individual reaction helps more clearly explain the effects of trauma. All right. So I wanted to kind of elaborate on this because this is a professional platform with an authentic twist, and we do focus on the workplace. And so a piece of this that I want us to walk away with is that as you're navigating your workspaces and you're going through you've gone through these traumatic events in the past week organizations really need to understand their employees, and they need to understand what support looks like for their employees, right? So if we know that we're working on DEI related initiatives and an event happened where a particular group, historically ignored group, was targeted, right? We need to allow for space, right? And we need to center the emotions and the feelings and the experiences of those people who have suffered from that trauma. And the way we best do that, or the way that I personally recommend organizations and DEI professionals to do that, is to hold space through an employee resource group, through a group. I mean, I know that, there's a book called Why Are All the Black Kids Sitting at the Lunchroom Table Together, right? You always make a cohort of people, whether you're in the workplace or in schools, or there's always a clique of people that look like you, who you decide that I'm gonna commune with this group of people. I have trust among these people. The best way for us to navigate this in the workplace is to hold space, and for organizations to allow for that space to be held during work time. Okay? Business as usual should not happen. There should be a time where we stop and we allow for people to process. And more than likely, if you are a mature or seasoned organization, that employee resource group would have already created their rules and regulations on what it looks like to hold space. So when it's time to hold that space, it should be fairly easy for them to continue in that. All right. That's very, very important. For parents right now, if you have parents who are in the workplace and their kids had to go to school today, right? Imagine what parents are feeling. Take time. Maybe have a parents group. Maybe have a Zoom meeting where all the parents can come on and they can process what's going on. Because you can't have business as usual when people are dealing with trauma. You have to give people the option to process the trauma and identify the next steps. Excuse me. Sorry, guys. So, as I was saying, excuse me. So we want to make sure that we hold space, and we want to make sure that we are in a space where we're allowing for people to process and identify what the long-term effects of their traumatic experiences will be. Most of the time when we hold space in these situations, we find that you identify long-term and short-term outcomes, and there's a preventative way to ensure that we're not re-traumatizing later on. So check this out. So they also talked about the 4 R's of trauma-informed care, right? And the 4 R's are described as this. There are 4 components known as the 4 R's of trauma-informed care, which guide community efforts to bring trauma-informed care principles to the community. First, we must realize the trauma. And it's a widespread concern in the community, and recognize the signs and symptoms. So as an organization, you need to realize the trauma and recognize the signs and symptoms. Then you respond to the trauma in a way that reflects your awareness that the event may affect individuals who are directly and indirectly involved in the situation, holding the space. This could look like talking about the experiences of other people outside of the epicenter of the event, right? And finally, all of your efforts to be supportive should resist the re-traumatization of individuals who have experienced trauma and are in the process of healing by avoiding potential triggers. Now, this is the piece where I feel like we're failing in organizations or within institutions or within, our scope of America. We are re-traumatizing people every day, and we are not doing the supportive necessary needs to resist this re-traumatization. So we believe that as long as we talk about it and as long as we hold the space, it's fine. But we're not actually taking that additional step and saying, okay, where can triggers lie in this ecosystem, and how do we stop that from happening? Which is very, very important. Now, the next piece is resiliency. Now, this word is triggering for me a little bit because I feel in some ways this resiliency component, although we just went through the 3 E's, although we just went through the 4 R's, realize, let me go through them again. So the 3 E's were the event, the experience, the effects. The 4 R's are the realizing, recognizing, responding, and re-traumatization, right? Then we get to resiliency, okay? And resiliency by the American Psychological Association is defined as the process of adapting well in the face of adversity, trauma, tragedy, threats, or significant sources of stress. Resiliency involves bouncing back from traumatic experiences and can also involve profound personal growth in the process. In this context, resiliency is the ability to adapt and recover following a trauma. So this is kind of triggering for me because I believe that this kind of negates the feelings of the person. It negates the outcomes of that trauma. It negates the long-term and short-term effects. It basically says, well, if you're just resilient, you can bounce back, and you can have this growth in the process. And that kind of lets an offender or someone who triggers or someone who continues to re-traumatize, it kind of lets them off the hook in a way. And I know that's really nuanced, and I don't want to get into that conversation today, but it kind of lets them off the hook in my opinion. So for those of you out there who have experienced trauma or are currently experiencing trauma, some of the trauma that we experience, we don't need resilience, we need healing from. Resilience is you're just adapting and you're coping. I think we need true transformational healing. And I stand with you if you're in the process of trying to get that true transformational healing versus just being resilient to trauma. And I feel like this resiliency is the approach that we're seeing society do as a way to just not think about it anymore, instead of finding solutions that can help us move forward in a better way. So guys, that is it for today. I know we should talk more, right? So I'll see you next week at 5:30. Every Wednesday, we will be here. Some Wednesdays we may not. I'll definitely let you know. Follow us on any one of our social medias. You can see it up on top of your screen. And if you are interested in partnering with us on our $7,000 campaign, it would be amazing. Don't forget, however much you think you want to give, go ahead. You can give anonymously. And I just appreciate you guys. If you know any young people who would be interested in a summer bridge boot camp, who are now rising into their freshman year of college, please let them know. And let them go to my website and sign up or contact us in any type of way. Follow us on all of our social medias, and we will be back here, Black and Beautiful Chit Chat Connections, next week. Thanks so much, guys. It was so great to see you.